Just talk about today, go into today and talk about, the proper formation of an LLC. Well, firstly, we want to start with how the state handles the LLC. What is the driving force behind allowing us to, form this LLC? So we talked about the history of how it came here, but why was the U.S. so attracted to it? What was the great benefit? Well, one of the things I mentioned briefly earlier is that the LLC allows the protections that you would get if you were registered as a corporation, but it also allows you room to move around the business entity structure if you are a solo owner, if you do have partners, but you want to control how management looks. It just allows a lot more wiggle room with the actual structure while giving you the full protection of a corporation. So in state law, and that is what's really important, each state, the laws are different. And so you really want to get to know what your state law is. A lot of times people form LLCs and it's not even on their radar to think about the state law. And as you know, if you watch part 1 and the introduction, I am an attorney who practices in the areas of business. That's one of the areas I practice in. And so it is my duty, I have due diligence to, read the law when it comes to, business formation, what is the statute, how does that particular state look at that specific type of business entity. But the laymen don't do that. And to be honest with you, a lot of individuals, because we see them pop up a lot everywhere, a lot of individuals who proclaim to be professionals, and they may be, I'm not saying they're not, but they proclaim to be professionals who deal with establishing and forming an LLC for you, literally just go in and do whatever the requirements are to establish that LLC, but do not understand the laws that surrounds operating to the fullest potential to protect yourself. And so people are just getting LLCs created for them and they just go from there. And as I showed earlier, and I will show it now again, we have the state statute that we have to read and stay abreast. Things are always changing. It's not just the state statute. We also, when I say we, I'm speaking of, legal professionals who do their due diligence. Hopefully you're getting someone who do their due diligence, someone who, is a great legal counsel and representative for you. But what we do is not just read statute, but we have to read case law, because the cases constantly change law. It changes law. And as I told you, the LLC is one of the youngest entities formed. So the body of law is still being developed, which means it's still constantly changing. So we must read the laws. And part of that is a huge, huge impact on you forming an LLC. So the state treats the LLC as a separate legal entity from you as an individual, or you as individuals, as partners. And that is how you are afforded your limited liability protection. If something was to happen, it doesn't, roll over to your personal assets. Again, as long as everything is done the way it's supposed to be done, in general, it would not roll over to your personal assets. The claimant or the person who has an issue with you and claim that you are a wrongdoer is only limited to the assets that your company has. So the state treats it as you and your entity, the LLC, as separate legal entities. And when you are filing for your LLC, you want to file in a state in which you are doing business. So this is something that a lot of people don't think about either. Sometimes individuals say, hey, I just want to file my LLC in such and such state because I heard that's a great place to file an LLC, or I want to file it here. But you have to be doing business in that state. I won't go through the list of what's considered doing business, because to be honest with you, there's not really a hard line in the sand on what is considered doing business. A lot of times the conversation is more around what's not doing business. So I guess you could, work backwards and figure out what doing business is in certain states if they tell you what not doing business is. But just offering your product or service, selling it somewhere, someone having access to your product or service, maybe you sell it online or whatever, doesn't necessarily qualify you as doing business in that particular state. The state will let you know what is not doing business, and then you will learn from there what is doing business. But if you are doing business in multiple states or can qualify as doing business in multiple states, then one of the decisions that you want to make is which state do you form, and do you have to form them in each state you're doing business, because that also may be a state requirement.